Professional security officers regularly respond to accidents and incidents in the facilities they protect. Typically, they are first on the scene in these events. They must take control and activate emergency procedures, making notifications, calling for assistance, and taking actions to secure the facility. Security officers must take proactive steps to prevent further harm and interact with responding public safety agencies. Disasters can occur with little or no warning. Natural disasters strike each year, causing hundreds to thousands of deaths and injuries, billions in property damage, countless financial losses, and social disruption. Sometimes there is advance warning, even days before the event strikes. With other events like tornadoes and earthquakes, there may be little or no warning. Fires can break out. A hazardous material spill can release toxic substances. Gun violence can occur. Terrorists may strike without warning. No matter what kind of incident, no matter what the hazards involved, an organization's emergency managers must take steps to protect those within the facility. Knowing what to do when faced with an emergency can mean the difference between calm and chaos, life and death. Failure to respond adequately could result in injuries, loss of life, and potential lawsuits and penalties for gross negligence. This is the third program in the Professional Security Officer series and is called Handling Emergencies. It is designed for personnel who work as or who are training to become professional security officers, those who are supervisors or employers of security officers, and those who are studying emergency management, security management, criminal justice, or homeland security. The program will examine emergency management and describe the role of the incident command system in managing emergencies. It will look at the two approaches to protective actions and list the duties of professional security officers when responding to fires, hazardous materials releases, bomb threats, and workplace violence. A good emergency management system is the key to handling incidents of all kinds. The four basic components of emergency management are mitigation and prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. Mitigation and prevention begins with a risk analysis to determine the types of incidents the facility should be ready to handle and the probable consequences of such events. Prevention activities are taken to eliminate or reduce risks by identifying hazards and, when possible, eliminating them. Then, policies and procedures are created to reduce the effects of such incidents. To be prepared to deal with emergencies effectively, there must be a plan. Emergency plans should address all hazards and incidents that could occur. This includes incidents inside facility buildings, on facility grounds, and incidents within the community that could affect the facility. A good emergency plan minimizes reaction time, reduces vulnerabilities, minimizes impacts, and facilitates recovery. It should establish protocols and processes for operations during an emergency, including interaction with responders from public safety agencies. The plan should outline a comprehensive communication strategy for interactions with facility employees, management, response agencies, and the media. The unique circumstances of individuals with special mobility, cognizance, sight, or hearing needs must be addressed. An organized emergency response team should be in place with the necessary supplies and equipment to take effective action. Professional security officers are usually critical members of such a team and often provide its leadership. The plan should identify key roles for the team, assign responsibilities, and outline standard operating procedures. Response team personnel should be trained to obtain the skills and knowledge to function effectively. The plan must be exercised to ensure all team members are aware of their roles and responsibilities. The team should train for likely incidents, but also for a worst-case scenario. If the team is prepared for that, it should be able to handle any emergency. Lessons learned from exercises and experience should be used to modify and improve the plan.
Dispatch, 911's been called about 5 minutes.
Okay, sir.
A facility's incident response may be organized in a number of ways. However, it must be understood that responding emergency service agencies will likely be organized around the Incident Command System, or ICS. This is a widely used system for emergency management endorsed by the Department of Homeland Security's National Incident Management System. ICS is a system for commanding and controlling emergency operations of all kinds. It is flexible, so users can adopt an organizational structure equal to the size and complexity of each incident. Security professionals must understand ICS to effectively interface with community emergency responders and to request and offer assistance. The first arriving emergency responder, or leader of the first unit on scene, will take command of the incident. The person acting as incident commander may change during the incident when a more senior or more experienced official arrives on scene. The incident commander manages the incident, assessing the situation, determining priorities, objectives, and strategies, and appointing and supervising staff. In a facility, the first arriving member of the emergency team will take command. This is likely to be a security officer, who may later be relieved by a supervisor. The eventual incident commander may be the facility's emergency manager. When public safety agencies arrive on scene, they will typically assume command. It is helpful to get to know the key players before there is an incident, so the facility's emergency management team should develop working relationships with the local response agencies. Some facilities may elect to become involved with community response exercises to gain experience, and may even invite emergency responders to have a training exercise at the facility. Recovery should be a consideration as soon as the response begins. Security personnel must work to maintain security of the facility at operational standards and to ensure that unaffected areas are safe for building occupants. Once the response phase is over, security officers may be assigned to damage assessment duties, such as tracking injuries and fatalities, and keeping people from any hazards that may remain. Needs assessment might be carried out to determine requirements to bring the facility back to operational status. In many incidents, some kind of protective action will be required to safeguard people who might be threatened by the emergency. There are two basic types: evacuation and sheltering in place. The decision to evacuate or shelter in place is one that is made on a case-by-case basis, determined by the conditions. Is there enough time to evacuate? Will sheltering in place provide adequate protection? Are food and water on hand for an extended period of sheltering? Sometimes it appears that moving people is the best option, but there is not the time or resources to do so. Sometimes the decision is made by the local government's emergency management agency. In other cases, the decision may be made by the facility emergency manager. Some evacuations are carried out on a pre-emergency basis, when the time remaining before an emergency strikes can be confidently predicted, such as an approaching hurricane. Post-emergency evacuation should take place only if there is no threat of evacuees being engulfed by the emergency. Emergency alert systems should be put into action. Tests of the alert system should be held periodically to be sure occupants understand the actions they must take. Messages and information should be provided in English, with other pertinent languages to follow. People must be told when to go, what to take, where to go, and how to get there. There may be a designated assembly point, and when necessary, a secondary assembly point. There must be a plan to assist the physically challenged. Evacuation routes must be planned for foot traffic as well as vehicles, with alternate plans in case the primary routes are untenable. Evacuated buildings must be searched to be sure that everyone is out. People have been known to hide to avoid evacuating, some planning to carry out thefts or other crimes after everyone else is gone. This search may be carried out by security officers. Once a building has been evacuated, it should be secured and not be re-entered until the all clear is announced by the organization ordering the evacuation.
Listen, I got some work.
We gotta go. We gotta. Everybody out. Everybody out. Come on.
Listen, my
Everybody.
boss is gonna kill me if I
We all
gotta
gotta
get this
go.
done.
We all
man.
gotta go. Come on. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
If you will, just bear with us. Hopefully we won't be.
Sheltering in place can be used when there is little time to react to an incident. For example, a migrating toxic vapor cloud. It would be more dangerous to evacuate than to keep people indoors where they are. This can be effective in modern, airtight buildings. All windows and exterior doors should be closed and locked. If there is danger of explosion outside, window shades, blinds, and curtains should be closed. Ventilation, exhaust fans, and HVAC systems should be shut down. If possible, people should move to interior rooms or hallways without windows. Sometimes, before the emergency has run its course, sheltering in place may have to be terminated, and those sheltered evacuated from the area. Special protective actions are required for such occupancies as hospitals, nursing homes, schools, child care centers, and correctional facilities. For many of these, evacuation is usually a last resort. The loss from fire in the United States averages about $20 billion annually. The first line of defense against loss is fire prevention. Security officers must recognize fire hazards and take action to mitigate these hazards. Since we are surrounded by fuels, it is easier to identify ignition sources. Soldering irons or hot plates, welding sparks, overloaded electrical circuits, carelessly discarded smoking materials are all potential causes of fire. Sometimes there are careless accumulations of fuel, trash, especially paper or other combustibles, or improperly stored flammable liquids and gases. Fire protection systems are a key part of a facility's defenses. These include systems that detect heat, smoke, or carbon dioxide, and provide an alarm. Many buildings are equipped with sprinkler systems that are activated by heat and spray water on a fire. Sprinklers have proven to be very effective in reducing loss of life and damage to property. Many sprinkler systems have an exterior valve which connects to the local water system and which should always be locked open. Some systems have an exterior fire department connection, so additional water can be pumped in to support the sprinklers. If damaged or compromised, they can be useless to firefighters. Fire doors help reduce the spread of fire. Some fire doors can be left open because they have automatic closers in the event of a fire. There is a danger when these doors are propped open. When confronted with fire, security officers must assess their own risk, consider the resources they have available, and determine their priorities. The first step is always to notify the fire department. Then, does it make sense to try to fight or contain the fire? Unless the fire can be quickly extinguished, evacuation of endangered building occupants will be the next priority. Once the fire department is on hand and everyone is out of harm's way, security officers may participate in salvage work, like protecting property from water damage. When security professionals are called upon to use a fire extinguisher, it is important to know what is burning. Fires are classified according to the type of fuel. Class A fires are in ordinary combustibles like paper or wood. Class B fires involve flammable liquids like gasoline. Class C fires are in energized electrical equipment. Class D fires involve combustible metals like magnesium or titanium. Class K is kitchen fires, involving burning fats, oils, or grease. Security officers must know what types of extinguishers are available in their facility, their locations, and how to use them. When selecting an extinguisher for an incipient fire, security officers should look for the class on the extinguisher. A water extinguisher will be useful for a Class A fire, but not for a Class B or C fire. Dry chemical extinguishers are most common and can be used for most types of fires. CO2 or carbon dioxide extinguishers are very good for Class B and C fires. A wet chemical extinguisher is the best choice for use on kitchen fires. The extinguishing agent discharges as a fine mist, which helps prevent grease splash and fire reflash. The release of hazardous materials can present a life hazard, so responding security officers must know what actions to take when first on the scene. Hazardous materials are substances capable of posing an unreasonable risk to health, safety, or the environment. Any incident involving hazardous materials can be unpredictable and dangerous. People can be injured in a number of ways. They may suffocate by the elimination or reduction of the supply of oxygen. Corrosives and poisons can cause chemical harm. Radioactive materials can cause cell damage. Infectious agents may cause disease. Mechanical injury may be caused by the failure of pressurized containers or explosions. Many hazards may be present. The situation can degenerate very rapidly with disastrous consequences that can spread beyond the facility to the local community. When security officers are first on the scene of a hazmat incident, they should be able to recognize the potential problem and take appropriate action to protect themselves, save the lives of others, and help bring about a favorable outcome. The first step is to move upwind and uphill from the incident. Then, if possible, determine if hazardous materials are involved. If so, what are they? And what are their hazards? This information can be critical for response agencies. One clue to the presence of hazardous materials is containers. 55-gallon drums may contain hazardous liquids or solids. Pressurized gases are found in cylinders. Cargo tank trucks and railroad tank cars can contain gasoline, fuel oil, corrosives, or other chemicals. Other containers may be less recognizable. There may be sensory clues to the presence of hazardous materials out of control. A vapor plume, a burning liquid, unusual smoke, or peculiar smells. Some odors can quickly deaden the sense of smell, so that the odor no longer gives warning. This can result in an inhalation hazard, throat irritation, dizziness, or even asphyxiation. Placards and labels can help identify the principal hazard of a material. The U.S. Department of Transportation has divided hazardous materials into 9 hazard classes. Hazard Class 1 is explosives, materials capable of releasing tremendous amounts of energy. Class 2 is gases, chemicals shipped in a compressed, liquefied, or cryogenic state. Division 2.1 is for flammable gases. Division 2.2 is for non-flammable gases. And Division 2.3 is for poison gases. Flammable liquids, Hazard Class 3, are liquids which ignite easily. Hazard Class 4 has 3 divisions. Division 4.1 is flammable solids. Division 4.2 is spontaneously combustible materials. and Division 4.3 is materials which are dangerous when wet. Hazard Class 5 has 2 divisions. Division 5.1 is liquid and solid oxidizers. Division 5.2 is for organic peroxides, chemicals which provide both oxygen and fuel for a potential fire. Hazard Class 6 has 2 divisions. Division 6.1 consists of poison liquids and solids, while Division 6.2 is infectious substances which cause disease. Hazard Class 7 is radioactive materials. Hazard Class 8 is corrosives, acids and bases that can corrode metal or destroy skin tissue. Hazard Class 9 is reserved for miscellaneous hazardous materials. Closely associated with DOT placards is the United Nations 4-digit identification system. The numbers are required to be placed on or near bulk transport placards, as well as on shipping papers. With a copy of the Emergency Response Guidebook, the number can be used to identify the hazardous material. The book also has guides which describe the hazards of each type of material and the emergency actions which trained personnel may undertake during the initial stages of the incident. Another marking system which may be encountered is the National Fire Protection Association's standard for the identification of the hazards of materials for emergency response. It uses a numbering system to show the severity of the hazards present, with 4 being the most severe and 0 indicating minimal hazard. Each section of the marking represents a different type of hazard. The blue diamond carries health information. The red shows flammability hazards, and the yellow diamond indicates the instability or reactivity of the substance. The white diamond may contain information about special hazards. Safety data sheets and shipping papers are other sources of information. Many weapons used by terrorists are forms of hazardous materials. These include explosives, radioactive materials, chemicals, and biological agents, often collectively referred to as weapons of mass destruction. When responding to an incident where hazardous materials or weapons of mass destruction are suspected, the security officer should move away from any spills or vapor clouds while carrying out notifications. To protect others, security officers should isolate the area and keep unwary people at a safe distance. When emergency responders arrive, security officers must communicate all the information they have gathered and their observations of what is taking place.
That's all you mean, Tim.
Okay, is anyone left in the building?
No, I got everyone out.
Any place can be targeted by bombers or by those who threaten bombings. Some facilities are more likely targets than others. Government buildings, companies with controversial products or services, sporting events, schools, transportation systems, and political or international events. Generally, any place that could result in mass casualties. Bomb threats may be delivered by telephone, mail, emails, by notes left in an elevator or elsewhere, or scrawled on mirrors or walls. A more recent version is the threat of biological agents, perhaps delivered in a letter or package that includes a note stating that the package contains anthrax or some other agent. Since the attack with anthrax letters in 2001, such threats have been used with greater frequency, though almost always the contents have proven to be harmless.
When is the bomb going to explode, sir?
A bomb incident plan provides detailed procedures to be implemented if a bomb is threatened or discovered. Switchboard operators, receptionists, and other key staff must be trained to receive a bomb threat call. And if possible, threatening calls should be recorded. A checklist of questions to ask the caller should be prepared and left by key telephones.
Did you place that bomb, sir?
The checklist should be constructed to get as much specific information as possible. Where is the bomb? What does it look like? When is it going to explode? What kind of bomb is it? What will cause the bomb to explode? Who placed the bomb? Why? The message should be recorded or transcribed so the credibility of the threat can be evaluated. The facility emergency manager will have to decide on a course of action. Some facilities have decided that it is impractical to routinely evacuate and send workers or students home for unfounded bomb threats. Some plans do not call for evacuation unless and until a search finds something suspicious. This approach discourages callers who are motivated by the prospect of early dismissal.
Evacuate the building. So I want to make sure we check the areas outside first.
In most jurisdictions, bomb technicians will not carry out a search just because a bomb threat has been received. But police and firefighters may assist in searching for a bomb, especially in schools and other public buildings. A facility's bomb incident plan should have a search plan. Search teams are made up of employees who are most familiar with the building. Security officers are usually good candidates for such teams. Searchers should work in teams of 2. Generally, the search starts with the areas of greatest public access: the perimeter, lobbies, mailrooms, shipping docks, public restrooms, and cafeterias. Searchers should touch nothing and should not change the environment by operating lights or thermostats. A procedure should be established for reporting progress to the emergency manager. If a suspicious item is found, law enforcement should be notified, the area evacuated, and a perimeter established. Once the bomb squad arrives, they will want to interview the discoverers of the package to learn all they can about it. Then, bomb technicians begin the process of examining the item, and if necessary, rendering it safe. Workplace violence is a growing problem. The perpetrators may be strangers involved in the commission of a crime. These types of incidents account for the greatest number of injuries and deaths. Other perpetrators may be current or past customers who have a grudge against the business. They may be current or former co-workers, disgruntled over perceived injustices at work. Others may be spouses or lovers involved in domestic disputes, or stalkers. Violence can occur at several levels. Threats are expressions of intent to inflict violence. Harassment is behavior designed to worry or trouble someone. An attack is the use of unwanted force against someone to cause harm. About 1/3 of attackers are armed, 1/3 of these with a firearm. Security professionals must remain alert for any unusual behavior that might be a precursor to violence. There may be customers who are argumentative, belligerent, or who make unwanted sexual comments.
It's the 5th time you've been late this week. If you want more time, I'm going to kick you off this job.
They may be workers who argue with supervisors or threaten to hurt people. Suicide threats, fights, or sabotage. Any signs of threat should be immediately reported to management. Some organizations form violence intervention teams. Working with law enforcement and security, the team must take whatever action is reasonable and necessary to contain the violent act and minimize the risk of harm to people. The violent perpetrator should be managed or removed from the organization's premises as quickly as possible, and the threatened individual protected.
And is he injured?
He's injured.
He is.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's bleeding.
All right. I'll be with you in a minute.
I didn't do anything wrong.
Take it easy, okay?
Professional security officers respond to accidents and incidents of all kinds in the facilities that they protect. Typically, they are first on the scene and must take control and activate emergency procedures. They must be familiar with the facility's emergency plan and understand their role. They must understand the basic approaches to protective actions and know their duties when responding to fires, hazardous materials releases, bomb threats, and workplace violence. Knowing how to handle emergencies is a key skill for protecting people and property from harm. The next program in this series will look at ways to counter terrorism.